Welcome to this afternoon's Cabinet meeting. Can we go to the start of the agenda, please? Do you have any apologies?
We have apologies from Councillors Davis, Jones and Packer, and Councillor Wright has sent his apologies as well.
Okay, thanks very much. We'll move those declarations of interest. Councillor Stoddard.
I have a declaration of interest on item 11, Norwich Regeneration Limited Business Plan. I will be leaving the meeting for the duration of that item.
Thank you. Councillor Kendrick.
Yes, it's item 10, Jeff Jones, Council Director of Norwich NPS.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Again, item 10, I'm a Director of Norwich North Building Limited appointed by the Council, but as the decision was made some time ago to move away from Norwich North Building Limited towards NCSL, I can participate and vote and present the paper.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, item 10 needs to declare interest as a non-executive director of both of us, so I understand it's appropriate for other than
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Councillor Oliver. We don't have any public questions or petitions. We have the minutes on pages 5 to 12. Can I sign those as a true record? Thank you. So let's go on now to item 5, Transport for Norwich Strategy, which is in the name of Councillor Mike Stoddard.
Thank you, Chair. So colleagues will remember in 2020 we outlined our radical vision for sustainable transport in response to the County Council's local transport plan consultation. And this was followed by a response to the County's Transport for Norwich Strategy consultation on the 8th of September 2021. And we produced that radical vision because we felt that the emerging strategies from the County Council were not sufficiently ambitious, particularly in the midst of a climate crisis where just building new roads and not having any mitigation strategies or looking at sustainability is unsustainable. So we recognised that we needed to have a radical and sustainable solution to transport within the city. And of course the city's transport needs are very different to the rural areas. We know that. Sadly, since the demise of NHAC, the control of highways issues in the city is from a county council dominated by rural councillors. And I think we see that from car-dependent areas, we see that in the sorts of strategies that they bring forward and in their behaviours. So the response that we made was informed in part by an awareness that of best practice and work also in other progressive cities to change the way people travel. And there's a lot of really good practice around there that we wanted to learn from and pick up from and implement in the city. And I won't go through that radical vision again, but it includes things like an assumption, a presumption in favour of cycling and walking in the city and public transport in the city over the private car. Now we responded to the Transport for Norwich strategy, and the final version which emerged post-consultation contains some crucial deficiencies, and there are some things we'd asked for which were really quite reasonable that didn't appear. So a lack of baseline data on the performance of the transport system so that we could set targets didn't appear. No acceptance that the road network and travel mode hierarchy should prioritise modes that use least energy, produce least pollution and promote the most healthy activity, which I would have thought was a fairly obvious priority system to have in the circumstances. No recognition of something we all know very well is that building and expanding roads fuels traffic growth and carbon-based patterns of development. So if you're going to build the Western Link, which is going to fuel traffic growth, are you going to do anything to create more sustainable modes of transport elsewhere? And the answer is, from the County Council, a resounding no. No mechanism for better coordinating the planning of new developments for transport investment. No commitment to build a comprehensive network of mobility hubs. And so it goes on. No demonstration of how the creation of new road capacity through new road schemes in the vicinity of Norwich will free up road space for bus lanes, cycle tracks and wider footways within the city. And that's about changing the way space on roads is used to prioritise more sustainable modes of travel. Very importantly, no restoration of the city's voice in transport decision making. Since the demise of the Highways Agency Committee, as I say, which was done unilaterally by the County Council, those decisions about highways and traffic issues in the city have passed to a County Council which is dominated by rural councillors who do not understand the needs of the city and come from areas where they are indeed car dependent and they think they should be able to behave the same way when they come into the city, and it's just not sustainable. So in January, I sought some convincing evidence that the Norwich Western Link Road would be part of an environmentally progressive and deliverable transport strategy for the city. And I made that very clear what we were looking for. Considerable air quality and decongestion benefits in the city. A comprehensive investment package in public transport, cycling and walking that's commensurate with the investment being considered for the Norwich Western Link and capable of delivering against internationally agreed carbon reduction targets. And when you look at the strategy, the County Council is planning on spending something like 5 times more on roads than it is on sustainable modes of transport, on the infrastructure for that. At the present time, that has got to be the wrong policy for the wrong time. Also looking for the completion of complementary schemes before the Norwich Western Link is complemented, and there's a precedent for that with the Northern Distributor Road. A political mechanism to ensure the governance is in place to ensure these commitments are implemented. And for that, it means giving us a voice and a say in performance managing and holding to account for the implementation of the strategy, and evidence that the wildlife and landscape impacts of the scheme can be satisfactorily mitigated, and we've been promised that for a long time. We were promised it early this year. There's no sign of it appearing yet. It may well appear as part of the planning application, but frankly that's a bit too late. Now, the Transport for Norwich strategy does include some vague commitments to carry out strategic assessments of the traffic impacts of completing the committee's strategy schemes, which includes the Norwich Western Link, to identify opportunities to deliver enhanced sustainable transport measures to support public and active travel. Yes, there are some vague commitments. However, there is no clarity about the scope of these assessments, when they will be done, and indeed why they've not been done already. There is therefore a risk that the construction of the Norwich Western Link will promote car dependency, worsening rather than alleviating traffic in the city. And if we are to be convinced that that won't be the case, then we really do need to see the what, where, when, how much of all of those schemes in detail. So none of the conditions I set out in January 2021 for supporting the Norwich Western Link have been fulfilled. And while it's possible that evidence can still be provided that the wildlife and landscape impacts of the scheme can be satisfactorily mitigated, all the tests need to be met for the City Council to support the Norwich Western Link. And it is clear, following the adoption of the Transport for Norwich strategy, that this possibility is, to say the least, remote. So even if we did see some evidence around the mitigation of wildlife and landscape impacts, that's not enough. We need a lot more than that. So we're at the end of a 12-month process, and therefore I've come back to you, having seen the strategy, to make some recommendations. First of all, to acknowledge progress made towards introducing a set of transport policies in 2021 that improve the prospects of a more sustainable approach to transport across the Norwich area, and we are doing that through the Transport for Norwich Committee with partners, and some very good work has been done there, and that needs to be acknowledged. However, recommendation 2, the strategy as adopted by the County Council is not sufficiently ambitious in moving the city towards a sustainable future for transport in the absence of an agreed action plan or approved local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, and with a capital investment programme that devotes a much higher proportion of funds to road building by comparison with schemes that support sustainable transport. So therefore, the City Council cannot currently endorse the strategy or support the proposal for the Norwich Western Link that is contained within it. But finally, recommendation 3, we do want to continue the productive working relationship with the County Council on the development of the Transport for Norwich strategy and its action plan, with a view to increasing the ambition shown regarding sustainable transport options for Norwich. That's where we're at. Those are the recommendations I commend to you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Any Cabinet colleagues want to ask any questions? I think it's a very clear exposition of our position and our ambition. Lucy, do you have a question?
Yeah, I've had to restrain myself from punching the air all the way through when you've been talking, Mike, so thank you. I have got a question. Just bear with me. I wanted to say we're really, really glad to hear this news. It's fantastic. So thank you very much, and I commend you on a really excellent report and a really, really good decision, I think, for everyone's future. So it's really good to hear. A year ago, I think I asked a question to Cabinet. It was in January, a public question, and it was around this. And I asked a supplementary when we first got the glimmer that this was, you know, a real glimmer of hope on this. And to see it really come through now is just a brilliant, brilliant thing. And I think for everyone, a very good sign that change is finally in the air about a road that's cripplingly expensive and incredibly damaging and a very bad idea.
Do you have a question?
The question is, obviously the word's good. Will you take action quickly on this and write to the Roads Minister saying this, and will you oppose the upcoming planning application?
Thank you for that, and thank you very much for your kind words. We will, if this is passed today, we will then have a discussion amongst ourselves about the next steps and what we do next, and those are things that we will consider as part of that. But we haven't actually had those discussions yet as a group, so I can't really say for sure. I don't want to make a policy on the hoof, but we will be having those discussions.
Okay. Thanks very much. Anything else? Any other questions? Right. Can we go with the recommendations? Sorry. Yes.
Sorry, you were saying questions, and I just wanted to comment as well. so I mean, it's a really good report, and thank you for the summary, Mike. I think that was really, really good. And I'd like to sort of agree with you about the demise of the joint highways. I think that's been a retrograde step, which we're paying dearly for, I'd say. And I think, you know, unfortunately, there is a lack of understanding by some of the county councillors who live in rural districts. So I'd like to thank you for the support for the report. Fully support it, of course, but I just wanted to say thank you to you and the officers.
Okay, I'm advised that I need a seconder for this report and the recommendations. So Gail, that's clearly stated. Thank you very much. Can we then vote on the recommendations? All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you very much. Okay, that's passed. Right. Let's now go on to item number 6, which is on page 31. In the absence of Councillor Karen Davis, I am presenting this report on the Draft Equality Information Report 2022. So, as you know, this is an annual report which comes before Cabinet. It's had some discussion already in scrutiny. Statutory requirement, one that we are very happy to fulfil. And this is the 4th of the report to be presented in the revised format, which uses a significant number of infograph representations, which I think has been very effective, makes messages clearer, easier for data to be sourced by stakeholders, and I think more accessible to a wider range of audiences. I mean, it's a living document. It's tested against comparative data at local, regional and national levels. And as a living document, it's one that we look constantly to calibrate when new data becomes available. So in paragraph 6, the 2021 census data will be published this year, so that's clearly going to be a key document in terms of a range of council policies, but certainly the equality strategy. So the work that will be carried on is a continuous process, and I would say that from our point of view, we also believe that sort of social and economic data is important as part of this exercise. There's some statutory elements, but this is an area where we think it's particularly important. And many of our council policies are about a stronger, inclusive element in the equalities programme. There's an equalities review underway, and that's covered on page 33. And we're using a local government framework, equalities framework, with a number of modules, 4 modules, to shape that new document. The overarching principle is that we as a council are committed to equality for all residents of Norwich, and that puts upon us responsibility to be strong and effective and accessible in our service delivery, to provide fair services, to be a good employer, as a contractor and as a community leader, and we celebrate the diversity of this city and the contribution of different groups in making a vibrant city. So we have to lead by example, and we have to work constantly to remove barriers to participation and access, to make sure that everybody feels part of the city and has a fair deal. On page 34, we have an update on the objectives going forward, an active agenda with a timetable. So a new equality and diversity and inclusion strategy will be worked on this year, and the expectation is that it is published in September 2022, and that will replace the existing equality and diversity and inclusion policy. So the organisation has to reflect our aspirations, this new strategy. So it's about a process which we know is underway, which is around the redesign of council services and reshaping those services around the needs of users and making those services to users more accessible. And we have to monitor changing needs, changing trends, changing behaviours in responding to the overarching principles of the new strategy. We need to understand the communities that make up the city, respect and celebrate diversity, and on page 35 you have a list of examples of how we apply those principles in practice of the work of the Good Economy Commission, significant amounts of work being done at neighbourhood and community levels. We have been very successful in getting a significant community renewal fund of about £500,000, and that's a very exciting project moving forward. we need to continue to work on developing and retaining a diverse and representative workforce, and we've seen ethnic diversity of the workforce has increased from 3.4% in December 2020 to 4.5% last September. Work to be done in this area, but good progress. Unconscious bias training, some work for all of us, councillors and officers of the authority, to improve our understanding of what equality diversity means and our understanding and perceptions. So a significant amount of work has been invested in this, and of course what COVID-19 has highlighted is deepening inequalities already built on a high level of inequality in British society in general, but also of course in the city. So hence the agreement and unanimously passed by the Council, the COVID-19 Blueprint for Recovery. In its third iteration, an update was published at the end of last year. And of course, actually, if we're to understand the city, the work that we have successfully undertaken with a range of partners for the Norwich 2040 Vision Group, and the work that we have done in partnership to deliver a range of important investments and strategies for the cities. I'd highlight, for example, the partnership working of the very successful Towns deal, which is driving forward in a number of areas across the economy around social investment, around economic and cultural well-being. And so we are well placed through the strategies, our anti-poverty strategies going back many years, to help tackle what is an acute cost of living crisis for many people in the city, and those examples are listed in paragraph 22. So the work that has been undertaken, I commend the officers for the work that's been done on this. This is a cross-organisational exercise, but I'm particularly thank Emma Smith for the work she is doing, and she's here this evening to pick up any questions or comments. At the bottom of page 36, Scrutiny Committee very helpfully looked at this area of work and made three main recommendations. The recognition of the work that's been achieved, to look at some other areas of partnership working in terms of housing and health, a range of other services, including legal services and education, and also work around the complaints process, and to keep scrutiny informed of improvements in data collection and protected characteristics. I think we're very happy to accept those recommendations. So that's the report, ambitious, living document in a process of transformation, and very central to the work that we do as a local authority in policy direction with the administration. So I'll take any questions from Cabinet colleagues or observations. Okay, Lucy.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. It's great. And Scrutiny did work hard on this one, and there are 3 recommendations there, but underneath that there was a list of, I think, over 30 questions that we looked at and got answers on. So it was a really good process, I think. So thank you to the officers and the Cabinet members for their input into that. Just as one question, you talked about welcoming data-based policy and going forward. I think something that was come to light subsequent to the scrutiny was about, I'd just like to raise this as a question. It's about apprenticeships, because they're mentioned on page 34 that the decision has been made that all future restructures will include apprentice posts. So it's something to review, and I've got some more information I can share. That really they've found that apprenticeships tend to be given to people that are already advantaged. There's good evidence of that. So I'd just like to draw that to your attention and ask if I can share that data with officers, and perhaps if they can start to look at how that could be mitigated against if it's going to be a key plan going forward. It's from the Social Mobility Commission, so it's just something that can be added. As you say, it's a living document, so I hope we can carry on working on that, and I look forward to the new review.
Okay, thank you, Lucy. I'm just going to ask Emma if she'd like to respond.
Thank you. There's quite a lot of work strands across the council in regard to equality. Obviously, one mentioned here today is around workforce diversity, and our intention is to sort of try and pull all of those work strands into sort of one area so we can report back to Cabinet and other committees as appropriate. And I think certainly, as you highlighted, the workforce one needs to take account of the point that you've raised. So I can certainly liaise with Head of HR on that for you. If you share the information, that would be great.
Okay, so there are no more questions or comments. We're asked to approve the publication of the annual Equality Information Report 2022. All those in favour, please indicate. Okay, thank you very much. That's passed. Let's now go on to page 81, item 7. These are the scrutiny recommendations to Cabinet, and I think colleagues will have had a pre-scrutiny list from a meeting of I think a couple of days ago, relating to the award of contracts for the 3 school housing developments and the Norwich Regeneration Limited business plan, which are going to feature today. Right, okay. So we haven't got the chair of scrutiny here today. He was detained at the last minute at work. So, Councillor Kendrick, do you want to briefly introduce this?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Obviously, normally I would just very briefly introduce this item and then hand over to Councillor Wright, as he was pointed out. He's not unfortunately able to join us tonight. He knew that just before this meeting began. I did attend the meeting on Monday, or so it's a virtual meeting on Monday, in regards to the 3 school housing development, so I could answer questions on that if people also wish. But I think on the rest of it, the items, as we have an officer who might like to introduce the particular item, whereas Councillor Wright is not here.
Okay, well, I'm happy to just pick up the recommendations. I'm going to take the recommendations from the Scrutiny Committee 10th of January when we cover the items on the agenda around 3 school and the Norwich Regeneration Limited business plan. So I'll just focus on the list of recommendations which I think go back to the end of the year, 18th of December Scrutiny Committee, looking at the new social inclusion agenda. I was therefore part of that meeting, standing in for Councillor Davis, and there are a list of recommendations on pages 82 to 84. These will I think certainly will be considered positively and integrated into the thinking and the work of the programme. I don't know if there's any officer who was, I think you were here, weren't you, Lee? Would you like to just comment on that? I've got a couple of comments to make myself, but perhaps you could give us your perspective.
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid I wasn't at that meeting either, so I perhaps can't comment much on the kind of meeting itself. There's a range of good recommendations here for us to give some consideration to. I think that because these may have some implications for resources and budget, we're perhaps going to have to do a little bit of a kind of high-level appraisal on what that might mean for us, which I would suggest that we could pick up sort of following budget setting at the end of this year, perhaps in April, and then come back with our kind of position on that. There's some good recommendations here, but I think we just need to understand what we might need to deliver those in terms of resources, budget, and other aspects.
Yeah, I think what I can say, for example, if we take the first two, bottom of page 82, top of page 83, is that we do some of this work around benchmarking with other cities. We're members of the Key Cities Group, which is a group of largely medium-sized cities, and we look at a range of our strategies as cities, including issues around inequalities and strategies to deal with that. So we have some data from that work, that working partnership. And at the top of the page, I remember at the meeting being, we had some very useful and productive discussion about living wage, living hours, the issues around 0 hours contracts, and people doing platform working and so on. And those are very much front and centre of the work of the living wage foundation, as it expands beyond simply increasing a pay rate. It's about having enough hours of work to make that a reality of having a secure income, but also looking at issues around pensions, union recognition, and building. If you can have a flexible workforce, you need a flexible system of remuneration, which the end result of which is that people have enough to live a reasonable life. But as Lou says, we'll have a look at some of these recommendations, but all of them express the right, exactly the right sort of sentiments that you would expect from this council and its progressive politics. Lucy, did you want to ask anything on this, since we haven't got a scrutiny chair with us today?
Yes, please. On page 83, actually, I had a correction. I brought it to the last scrutiny committee, but I think I was told to bring it here. Letter E, engage with communities to ensure it. We actually said implement. That was the words used in the. So it's just a correction. I did bring it to the last scrutiny and I spoke to the officer about it, but I'm bringing it here as well. The word used was implement participatory budgeting processes.
Instead of ensure participatory.
Yes, instead of ensure, the word implement.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what was agreed.
Okay, well, we'll make that amendment.
Thank you.
Okay, fine. If there are no further comments, yes, Lee?
Sorry, members. I was also at the last scrutiny committee meeting, and I recall particularly in relation to the first recommendation that's on the agenda, the committee were keen to emphasise that actually they saw there was a lot of good work taking place, and they wanted to see their recommendations enhancing that as opposed to compromising resources. So I think it's entirely right what Lee was saying earlier, that we need to evaluate the resources that are required to implement the recommendations. So perhaps it might be given the recommendation for Cabinet is to determine whether it wishes to adopt the recommendations, or some of them it might be that Cabinet agree with the principle behind the recommendations raised by the scrutiny committee, but recognise that there's a need to further consider the resources required for delivering and implementing them.
Yeah, I mean, I think in our experience we have this as a monthly report with recommendations, and some we can immediately agree to because they're sort of logical and they fit in, and others we then have to do an assessment of just the point that you've made, Lee. So that I think kind of covers those aspects. Lucy?
Just when you always consider resources on everything, I don't quite understand why this has an extra resource consideration attached to it.
I think it's embedded in the report actually, with the comments against the recommendations. There are several here looking at officer time, budgetary resources and so on. So you're quite right, it's explicitly stated. So I think I'm happy with what the recommendation is for this report. Okay. Right, can we agree that recommendation, or process recommendation? Yeah, Councillor Oliver, are you? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. That's passed. Let's now go on into item 8, which is managing assets, non-housing assets. So that will be Councillor Kendrick.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd certainly be helpful in regard to this particular agenda item. This relates to the land that we own adjacent to the Mayflower Walk Brookway, which is in Bowthorpe. The proposal is to transfer ownership to the County Council. They wish to turn it into a cycle route, which I'm sure we would all accept as the bona fide reasons to occupy the land in order to actually improve cycle routes within the city. Although we will not receive any capital receipt in regard to this transfer, we will of course be free from the need to maintain this particular grassed area. So I would recommend that we agree to this transfer to the County Council.
Okay, any comments or questions on that? No? Okay. Right, can we agree that, please? All indicates. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's great. No, item 9. Sorry, is that on the supplementary agenda? That's item 10, no, item 9 then, sorry, maybe I've just missed it in my looking through the papers. No, it's going to the next meeting. That must be the case. Okay, so item 9 is coming to our next meeting. The supplementary agenda is item 10, which is the housing repairs and maintenance services to be commissioned from Norwich City Services Limited, and that's Councillor Harris. And we need Kate to leave for this item. Thank you. Okay.
In what seems an age ago, Cabinet agreed the transfer of housing and property repairs and maintenance services from Norwich North Building Limited to Norwich City Services Limited, our own company, from the 1st of April 2022. I have to thank officers for the work that they have undertaken to get us to this point, that we now have a report in front of us which lays out the key principles in the commissioning of the contract with NCSL to undertake the repairs and maintenance service for the Council's housing and non-housing portfolio of properties. The scale of this task should not be underestimated, but we are determined that the service should improve, but at the same time we have to acknowledge that this will take time. As a council, we obviously want value for money, but we also need it to be an efficient and quality service. It must be customer focused. The contract will be for an initial period of 3 years from the 1st of April 22, with a performance-related extension for a further 2 years, then a further 5 years until the 31st of March 2032. I'm very comfortable with this approach, as it reflects the need for a significant service improvement, but gives NCSL the stability of future work that it needs as a company. The Council and NCSL will share the same objectives to improve and provide the quality service that our tenants deserve. There will be an improvement plan in place, and April the 1st is just the beginning of the journey. Key performance indicators, as listed on pages 8 and 9, will be incorporated into the contract. These indicators focus on the quality of the service and value for money. The Council is also a member of Housemark, a national housing benchmarking organisation, and for the housing repairs and maintenance service, the KPIs will enable comparison with peer organisations using the same performance benchmarking model. This will drive improvements in quality and service delivery and check that value for money is achieved. It is acknowledged that these improvements will not be made overnight, and the contract targets and the setting of the targets will reflect this, as explained in paragraphs 14 and 15. We will be aiming high. Having acknowledged that it will take time to embed and deliver the improvements to the service, it should be noted that the activities to achieve this will be contained within the NCSL Improvement Plan, which will be embedded within the NCSL Business Plan. Paragraph 20, page 14, gives details of the documents and governance that are in place or will be established during the first contract year by 31st of March 2023. All of the boards mentioned are essential to the good governance of this large contract, but I would like to highlight the commitment for a new housing repairs stakeholder panel to be created. The voices of the residents will be heard. The base value of the contract for 22-23 comprises of a core fee of 11.429 million. This is affordable within the proposed 22-23 budgets of the HRA and the General Fund. The base value of the commission contract over the initial 3-year period 22-23 to 25-26 will be 34.357 million, and the total base value of the contract, if extended for the 10-year period, will be circa 126.171 million, assuming a 3% inflation rate. This includes 0.463 million for short-term contractors for year 1 only, when including an additional 300 million of 0.300 million general fund budgetary provision for potential variations and an HRA contingency budget of 0.295 million. The total projected value of the initial 3-year period 22-23 to 25-26 increases to 36.195 million, and the total projected value of the contract, if extended for the 10-year period, will be about 132.991 million. A lot of figures, and I apologise for that, but this is of relevance to the second recommendation which we will consider. There is, of course, a detailed risk register set out in the papers on pages 14 to 17. There will be an open book arrangement in place to ensure that the Council has full transparency over the company's financial information relating to the contract. A meeting of the joint venture insourcing members working party, which is cross-party, was held late yesterday afternoon. This report was fully discussed for an hour and a half, so I am hoping that my brief introduction is adequate on this occasion. Officers might well want to expand on what I have said, or indeed have not said. However, I would like to say that however complex this process is, we made absolutely the right decision to transfer the services of Norwich North Building Limited to NCSL. Both NCSL and ourselves are brought in new expertise to help with the transition, and April 1st will be the beginning of a new era. We should embrace the opportunities that will unfold. I'm sure that we're all looking forward to working with NCSL on this new contract. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gail. And you made an important observation that we had a cross-party working group, insourcing working group last evening, and very thorough range of questions from members, which was very helpful. Is there any officer comment at this point? Okay, any Cabinet colleagues got any questions on this? No. Lucy?
Thank you. There's a question I've got is, and I may have an extra understanding because I obviously wasn't at the meeting last night, although I've heard some of it, but I haven't had a full report yet. But it's about why the services are restricted to the existing ones for 3 years. Because it's quite a long time, and it might mean that additional retrofitting work, which is going to be really important to get to net zero, might be not be able to be, or have to be contracted out to other companies, because there'll be all that extra retrofitting to be done. It is going to be a big opportunity, as we've discussed. So, have I got that accurately, or would it be possible to keep the terms more flexible so that NCSL can take on more proactive work if it comes? Because we're on a very tight deadline now, aren't we, for that sort of thing?
I'll let Lou start, and I'll come in if necessary.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the scope of the services that will be provided by the new contract are at this time the same as those that are provided under the existing contract through the joint venture. We've been really open about the fact that the services are not performing as well as we would like them to. There's room for significant improvement. And so we've been really clear with the company and with the board, and they are very committed to improving the services to get them to the right standard, the standard that our tenants deserve. So our focus is going to be improving those services through the company. There's a lot of work to do, and it will take all of the resources that we have. We're really committed to the retrofitting ambitions that we've set out in previous meetings, and we need to look at that this year and how we're going to assess and deliver those. We just feel that right at this moment in time that giving that work to the company is not the right thing to do. We need to get our basic services improved, and then we'll look at that through the year and make some decisions about how we're going to roll that out. Funding, providers, commissioning.
And of course we're celebrating the fact that we received £2.8 million for retrofitting works. We know the scale of the challenge, government knows the scale of the challenge, and we'd like to think government knows the scale of the challenge, that we really need to have significant investment from them to continue that vital work. Gail, did you want to make any further points?
I completely understand where Councillor Galvin is coming from, but I think at this stage the important thing is to get the service into our own company, to make to get to a service that our residents deserve, and then we can move forward. We can't expect the company to run before it can walk, and we don't want to set it up to fail. So I think we're absolutely right in what we're doing, but to bear in mind the comments that have been made, which we are aware that we want to be ambitious, but we've got to be pragmatic at this stage.
Okay, no further comments. Let's go to the recommendations on page 3 of the report, which is about noting the contract principles, set out in paragraph 5, and then the various delegations. Can we agree those, please? Thank you very much. So that's agreed. Now I'm going to switch items 11 and 12 to mean that as Councillor Stoddard has to leave, he leaves once rather than twice. So we'll take the award of contracts for the 3-school housing development first of all. And we can let's get Councillor Oliver back first. We can't have him missing this next item. Very much. Welcome back, Kate. So we're on page 103, and this report is in the name of Councillor Harris.
Thank you. I didn't realise I was going to be moved up the agenda. Of course, I welcome this report to consider the award of contract and delegated decisions for the development of 3-school phase 3. This is an area of the city that I know well and continues on with the excellent build and creation of homes achieved in previous phases of the development. The pre-construction services agreement was awarded to RG Carter Limited and work is now complete. This work involved carrying out detailed design and cost planning to create a fixed final design. The final design is for 76 dwellings, of which 52 will be council homes for social rent and 24 will be delivered via a separate contract as homes for open market sale via Norwich Regeneration Limited. It will be a mixed tenure development. As one would expect, the detailed specifications and build standards have evolved during the technical design stage, with design informed by passive house principles. The specifications allow for triple glazed windows, air source heat pumps instead of gas, mechanical heat recovery systems and high levels of air tightness. All of these exceed the building regulations for 2025 and are part of our journey towards delivering net carbon in the future. We know that people are struggling financially, some are having to choose between heating their homes and food on the table. These new homes will most certainly help reduce fuel consumption for our tenants. We know with Goldsmith Street development how these new passive house homes change people's lives for the better. It has given a quality of life that many had never experienced before and has had excellent environmental credentials. We also have to acknowledge that due to the pandemic, people are using their homes in different ways. In so many cases, their homes have also become their office, their place of work. This development will deliver homes in excess of minimum space standards required by building regulations, and in excess of national space standards, with most properties allowing for 10% more space. Each development that the Council undertakes uses the REBA phases as gateways to proceed, and at each stage design and cost becomes more fixed. A detailed cost plan has now been prepared using the detailed design from REBA Stage 3, and the detailed technical work undertaken as part of the pre-construction agreement, REBA Stage 4, which takes forward a developed design. This work is showing a significant uplift in the build costs from what was reported in April, which means that the development cannot be delivered within the cost limits that were in the April report. The cost increase is a result of the information that has been gained through the pre-construction stage, coupled with the well-known inflationary cost pressures in the construction industry being experienced across the country, not just in Norwich. This is explained in paragraphs 15 and 16 on pages 107, but I'm sure that we're all aware of the shortages and increase in costs of some building materials. It still remains the preferred option to use fixed-term contracts to deliver the development and for RG Carter Limited to do that work. Contract options are fully explored and documented on pages 110 and 13. Referring back to paragraph 5, page 105, the favoured approach last April was to direct award a contract to RG Carter Limited using the Pagabo Medium Works Framework, which has a limit of £10 million. At the point of entering into the pre-construction arrangement with RG Carter Limited, the cost plan had a construction phase of circa £2 million. It is recognised that within the design and build process that during the pre-construction phase, REBA Stage 4, a cost plan is likely to change, and the reasons for this have been previously explained. However, when using this framework, the value that actually matters is at the point of procurement in the Pagabo framework process, which indeed was below the £10 million threshold, so it has been confirmed that there is no need for any re-procurement to take place. The cost of this development is still considered to be value for money and enabled us to use retained right to buy receipts towards the build costs. There is no way that we want to give these receipts to the government because we have not used them within the time restraints that they feel necessary to impose. As you all know, I am deeply unhappy about the constraints imposed upon us by this Tory government regarding the use of our right to buy receipts, our retained right to buy receipts, and I will continue to lobby for further reform on this issue at every opportunity, and I will keep going on that. There is an exempt paper which gives more detail about the financial modelling, and in my mind there is absolutely no doubt that we should continue with this development. The development will be undertaken by RG Carter Limited, a local firm providing local employment opportunities and the possibility of apprenticeships, which we've already mentioned this evening. We have worked closely and successfully with RG Carter Limited on a number of occasions and have a good working relationship with them. We are all acutely aware of the housing shortage, and it is the wish of this administration to build high-quality, environmentally sustainable homes using our knowledge obtained through previous builds. This knowledge is considerable and should not be underestimated by any of us. This is another exciting development, and I look forward to many site visits as the development progresses. It is indeed in a wonderful setting with access to open green space. As always, I would like to thank officers on the excellent work undertaken in bringing this report to us, and I would urge you all to support this paper and move back to the recommendations on page 103.
Thank you very much. Very well presented report, Councillor Harris. Right. Officers, any questions at this stage or comments? I think that's a very comprehensive report. Okay. Any questions from cabinet members?
Sorry, just before you, is it appropriate time now to mention the pre-scrutiny recommendation?
We could certainly do that. I had that in mind, but we'll do it. We'll do it now. So actually, an assessment of that. So this is related to the cabinet investigating whether it's feasible to include detailed carbon life cycle assessments in the design of future building phases. That's the recommendation.
Can I just briefly comment on that?
You could.
Clearly there was a sort of lengthy debate about the merits of the pre-scrutiny meeting, and that was a suggestion that came out in relation to trying to further evolve the approach of the council where it's delivering development to more fully and thoroughly and I say, scientifically assess detailed carbon performance. Clearly we're building to excellent environmental standards, but we haven't yet got a model that enables us to clearly put a figure on how close we may be approaching to net zero, and the current tools on the market are actually quite expensive for us to calculate that figure. We're happy to take that on board as officers, and we're always looking to improve the way we monitor, assess and evaluate the emerging developments. The point I just offered by way of clarification is that I'm sure when if you just looked at the recommendation, you could interpret that as being future phases of 3 score, because that's what you were evaluating. I think the scrutiny committee intended that to be looked in general at all future house building projects that the council was evaluating, and we're happy to take it in that latter way, but I just think it might be helpful if the minutes record that that wasn't just specifically the recommendation specifically in relation to 3 score, but council house building more generally.
Okay, sure we can accommodate that. That was the sense of the point that scrutiny committee were trying to make. Lucy?
Yeah, I think I can help on that a bit. So the debate was around the fact that buildings, it's great to see these buildings being done to these standards with passive house, etc. But it's disappointing they haven't got solar panels, etc. They haven't got everything they could have. So only because, you know, doing something this well, and I understand that the need is to go fast. So that was part of that debate, and I completely agree with Graham. It's not future building phases of both, because the whole point is to get this done quickly, isn't it? It's in the future. So the question is, do you accept that in the future, ideally, buildings would, you know, are you happy with that recommendation that ideally we would build to the top standards that we can, where we can, while we're doing it, to avoid having to retrofit very quickly buildings that are very new? Thanks.
I wouldn't mind Dave coming in on this one, because we have talked about solar panels before, and it's not the be-all and end-all when you've got to weigh up the whole cost of the build and whether we can actually afford to build.
Yeah, Dave?
Again, Councillor House, there's not much more to say than your comprehensive answer. Of course, everything through design and construction is based on balance. We're in a strong position now to create that balance and generate balance in terms of the data and repository data that we're now amassing, because this council has been ambitious and brave to be building now for up to and beyond 10 years. So we have a lot of information around that. So clearly, when we are taking developments doing to this specific recommendation of doing a whole life cycle analysis, then we will be certainly investigating that, and we do welcome that, because there are various ways in which to achieve a low carbon approach, which is a 3-score, and there's no PV panel. But as we do, as Councillor Harris rightly pointed out, take our journey towards net zero, it may be appropriate we look at other renewable technologies. That form of analysis would inform that decision-making process. Again, balanced against that, the overall affordability to the house we look at.
Okay. Thanks very much. Dave, any other points? Yes, it would be nice to have significantly more resources. You've referred to the, the limitations on the time of the use of housing receipts, right to buy receipts. Gail, you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, it is an incredibly difficult balance, and as officers will know, I am always pushing for the very best that we can get. But I, again, sometimes have to be pragmatic about it. But, we're committed to social rents, and we're committed to keeping our own stock. So, there is always the balance, I'm afraid. And so we will always look and see what we can do. But, and we have learned so much that we've got the knowledge to evaluate things as well.
The context is, of course, is a hostile Conservative government that doesn't really recognise good quality council housing as a solution to the housing crisis, and the constraints that are placed on that vital type of housing continue to exist while we have this government and those attitudes still in place at Westminster. Right, but we do as much as we can, and what we do extremely well. So let's just go to the recommendations on page 103. There are two recommendations.
Chair,
yes.
Just before we do it, sorry, I don't want to go to committee, I'm just thinking there's an exempt appendix to the report, just before we move the recommendations. It's probably worthwhile checking we don't need to go below the line.
All right. Thank you for that advice. Gail.
I'm content not to go below the line unless other people have got questions on the paper.
I'd just like to say that if we don't go below the line, when I leave for the next item, I don't need to come back.
Well, that clearly is that clearly tips the balance in favour of that decision. But someone would like to spoil Mike's opportunity to go home at slightly earlier than the rest of us. And this is your opportunity. Okay, so is there anybody who wishes, cabinet members, wishes to go below the line for this particular item? If not, then we can, that item does not require any further discussion. So let's just go back to the recommendations, above the line recommendations. Are we happy to accept those? Okay, thank you very much. Let's now then go back to item 11, which is the Norwich Regeneration Limited Business Plan. We say goodbye to Mike. Thank you very much for your attendance and presentation. And that's in the name of Councillor Kendrick.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can I just say, first of all, the recommendations from the Scrutiny Committee relate to the below-the-line items, so I should not be mentioning when we are above the line. Secondly, I will be actually quite brief. Yes, I have had, of course, a considerable degree of involvement with NRL over the years, and I would certainly take the opportunity to thank Dave and Sean and his team for the excellent work they have done in really turning around the company. And also, I know Mike's not here anymore, so I can spare his blushes, but he too is chair of the company has done an excellent job, and indeed so have the non-executive directors. However, I have not been, obviously, because I led the directors' board last year. I've not really been involved in the business plan, but I'm sure that this business plan, well, I have my only involvement as being a member of the shareholder panel, where this plan was brought to us for review. And I think it's actually carrying on the excellent work that this company has been doing over the next few years. And my only suggestion would be that in the summer, when obviously hopefully the COVID restrictions are lifted and obviously the weather is better, let's have a site visit for all councillors to the Three Scotland Development, because I can assure you, having been down there, it's a thriving community which I think we can all be proud of in creating. And I think this is the opportunity to allow Dave Shaw to introduce this report, this excellent report.
Okay, anything you want to say, Dave? In the report? Okay, we've also got, alongside the recommendations on page 93, we do have some recommendations from scrutiny committee, the pre-scrutiny committee, which have been listed. I'll come to those in a minute. I'm going to ask if there are any cabinet colleagues who've got any questions or comments. Okay, well, I'll just wrap up. Lucy will obviously have an opportunity to pick up questions, but I did just want to have a look at the scrutiny recommendations.
Chair, on the point of order, they relate to the below the line item.
Do they?
Below the line.
No, do they? The recommendations?
I mean, in principle, Leader, if the Cabinet were recommended or minded to agree on the recommendations, we don't necessarily need to go below the line to debate them. You could just accept in public that you are happy with them, as has been circulated to you. Obviously, if you want to have any debate around them, then we need to move into the private session.
So, hang on, are we talking about the scrutiny recommendations?
Yes, they are obviously in relation to the exempt item. If you are not going to have, if you are content with them, they have been circulated to Cabinet members who have had the chance to review them. If you want to debate them, if for example you need to say, I'm not sure whether we should accept that or not, then we need to move below the line. If you are happy to incorporate them into your overall recommendations in the report and don't feel the need to discuss them, then you could consider them above the line in public, only to the extent that we say we are supportive of them. Obviously, any debate, discussion, detail needs to go below the line.
Right. I'm a little surprised by that, I have to say. But if that's how it has to be, well, I do have some comments about it. So we will go below the line. Right. Okay, Lucy, have you got any points you want to raise? Or any point?
I'm a bit worried because I don't know whether I'll be above or below the line on it, so maybe I'll wait for the next bit and then I'll be absolutely sure I'm okay.
Okay. Right. Okay, so there are no further questions on the report above the line, and we can't take the recommendations until we've gone below the line. So that being the last item on our agenda, with the exception of exclusion of the public, and having already agreed that we have no question on the 3-score housing development, and we're going below the line. Exclusion of the public, can we indicate, please, vote on that? Right. So that ends the above the line items meeting. We thank people who have been watching our deliberations this afternoon for their attendance, and wish them a very pleasant evening. And so we'll just wait a couple of minutes until we change to going below the line. So let's see if there's anybody who's waiting. Okay, right. So we're now back above the line for item 11, so page 93. So we have 4 recommendations. Could we first of all agree those if we're so minded? Please indicate. Thank you very much. We have discussed and noted the recommendations from the scrutiny committee. These, of course, points will appear in the minutes for the next meeting of Cabinet. Right, I think we're done. Have a good evening, everybody.